All right, everybody. It's Friday, 12 noon Eastern, and it's time for Q&A with Alan and Marshall. I'm Alan Howe. Marshall, of course, is not here, as you can see. He is actually in Houston, Texas at Night Owl Prints. I was gone last week, so this is his turn. And the guest we have today, filling in for him, is Mr. Ray Smith with Avient Inks. So,
hey,
Ray,
how you doing?
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well,
Tell us your background and what you do.
Yeah, so been in the screenprinting industry when I accidentally got into it in 1978 back in college. But I've been around. I was in the regular sector for about 20 years and then joined Wilflex in about 96 and then stayed there for 9 years, jumped out, did some more some production work, jumped back in, and I've been there ever since. I'm a field tech manager, so I'm over all the field technical guys that go out in the Americas. So that's in Central South America and then of course the U.S. and Canada, and just also work in the app lab. So I'm based in Kennesaw, where we make all the ink and where we do testing, and so I'm able to see the fruition of the idea, and then the ink, and then the testing, and then taking it out the beta, and then of course to launch it and help troubleshoot it afterwards. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be a good show. I think we're going to have a lot of comments. And Ray, I'm excited to have you on the show. We've known each other a long time, and you were always a guy within the app lab. When I was selling ink, we could count on for good information and what's new. And I love to see the videos of what you're testing and how to just make things better on there. For everybody listening, we got some people popping on. We'll get that in a minute. This is Q&A. So while we have topics, bring your ink questions. This is where they'll get answered. And if not, Ray and I'll make something up and it'll sound good at least. But if we don't know an answer, we'll find it out.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I want everybody right now to share with people, because the idea is for us to get more viewers. If you value the information, man, share it with people, tell people, and we want to keep doing that. As you can tell, also, I am not in my office. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri right now. I'll be going to the DAC show, hanging out with some GSG people. They have a booth. I have another dealer, T&J, out of Chicago, and both are Avient dealers. Part of that group. And so if you're in that Kansas City area and going to be coming to the DAC show, let me know. I'd love to hook up with you, meet you, and see what's going on. So it's a small show, but it's a fun show.
I first want to say I love the way you and Marshall say Avient.
Is it Avient or Avient?
Well, I think, I'm sure people in France call it Avient, I'm sure.
Well, Marshall and I are some of the more cultured people in the industry.
I think that's
not. So
I'll go with that.
Okay. I'll take that. I'll take it as a Michigan accent thing, being close to Canada. Avient.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, just So I can't. You know what? I'll blame it like I always do on my accent. Mom's from Alabama. Dad's from New York. I grew up in Michigan. I have the most screwed up accent in the world. So. Anyways, we got some people watching, of course, from Uppsala, Sweden. Gosta, how you doing, man? Always good. See, I told you. Yeah, I told you he's going for your beard, man. Gosta, I think, is the Chuck Norris of Sweden. Oh, yeah. So, Kisa, how you doing? Out of Texas. Mario, how you doing from Slovenia? Of course, the one and only Daton Dan Campbell from Alabama. Angel Montoya, how you doing, guys?
No, I know. He's with me. He's one of my guys.
Oh, he's one of your guys. Okay, yep. Where's he located at?
In Central America.
Okay,
so,
cool.
He travels through Mexico. He's going to be doing a lot of traveling this year, I hope.
Kent says it's the Gordon Fish and Chips guy. Great. Ray Greenwood, greetings, screenmongers. It is us. My friend Peter Babcock from Peter and Val from Port Huron, Michigan. And Hurley, you'll like this. We're going to talk about some special inks. Hurley's been doing some excellent HD work.
Right.
And as soon as we announced you were coming on, Hurley sent a message to me, goes, I can't wait. This will be good. I guess he's been in touch with you before.
Yes.
You guys have talked.
Yes.
Michael from California. Cindy from Texas, as always. The one and only Mr. Mark Saldonic from GSG. Frank from SNS. And Dan, what's he say? Ray, for your own practice when printing CMYK, what is your standard sequence for yellow? Does that change when printing on a base? Do you modify that yellow at all? So that is a great question. Before we get to that, let's pay some bills real quick. We are sponsored by GSG, Graphic Solutions Group. They're going to be here at the DAC show. And if you're not familiar with them, you probably should be. I'm running the controls. So where is that? Where's the earworm at? There it is. There we go. Everybody dance. We were getting down. Many raves are playing that song, Ray. So
Right. Yeah.
it's awesome. And GSG is a big Avient dealer. They handle a bunch of the brands. They do handle Wilflex and Rutland and Union, and so yeah, they're all over it.
Right.
So all the Avient brands.
We thank them
Yeah.
a lot.
They're a big one, and they're also a very nice Easyway dealer. So yeah, we like them. Who else we have? We got Richard Greaves here from Southeast Michigan.
Yeah.
Michael Fitch. Hey guys. Michael, where are you from? I don't think I met you before. But we like to know where people are from on there. So, but thanks a lot. So we had a question, Ray. First one. Before we get to the topic. What do you think? What's your
From a guy who knows it. But
yeah.
In my opinion, I do not modify any of the inks. I mean, they're already a weak, transparent ink. So, and I think there's a practice out there for people who would extend CMYK. It's not the way to go. The way to go with the CMYK is to use color data, and you should have some good color data that you supply into Photoshop. And what that does is it allows Photoshop to create the best possible separation with that ink in mind. Right now, those preloaded with, swap, for paper. And so that's a totally different, it's a dye, it's CMYK is weaker, the pigment CMYK is much stronger. So it has to really kind of zone back a little bit. Photoshop takes that into account. If you just tell it what's using, it'll make the best separation. So instead of, like 100% yellow and 20% magenta to make a certain color, it could be 100% yellow and 10% magenta because magenta is much stronger. So that's just an example. And if you ever did a separation right out of Photoshop with the swap included, just kind of freeze those separations and then go back in and load the color data and just hit CMYK, take it to the mode again, to CMYK mode, it'll spit out a whole different set. And you can just kind of compare it. Most of the time, you'll see that the cyan and magenta are the most affected. As far as sequence, I keep the sequence because I think the subtle differences in the color when you're talking about going on top of white plate is not as much and enough for you to adjust on press. That's my way of doing it. I've seen some CMYK guys that are fantastic. Probably see color a lot better than I have. Changed sequences just for a specific design, but not so much about underbase and more about the design itself. Hope that does it for you there, Dan.
Awesome. Curly has one, says he hasn't had the privilege to talk with Ray yet, but him and Milos from Holland's videos on YouTube got me interested in high density, and Milos is, man, he's a master at it.
Yeah, we were just talking about him.
Yeah,
That's
we
the most
were.
fun because when I get on with him on the Facebook Lives with the Avient,
Mhm.
he doesn't tell us what he's going to do. We just have to find out as he goes.
Right.
It's great.
And Michael Fitch says he's from Arlington, Texas. So
Wow.
good. It hasn't really been announced, but it looks like Marshall and I will be at the GSG booth for GPX Irving. So if everybody's going, make sure you stop by. I love to meet everybody. So we're excited to, of course, be there with GSG. And yeah, it'll be a good time. So wonderful. Well, we have some things. We've keep the questions coming. These are great, everybody. We do have some topics that Ray and I have talked about, and looking forward to it. So you ready to go, Ray?
Oh, I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. So inks, finding the true value. You know, this is something I can't wait to talk about because there's a lot of different choices out there, whether it be in the Avient line, other brands, and some people go, you know, they go on price. And you know what? There is a value to ink.
Right.
And I love how Avient, how, you know, Wilflex, and you guys, when I was selling Wilflex ink, why it was always the best value. But there was a way to find value of ink. And I think a lot of people we're talking, it's not that people don't care, they just don't know.
Right.
So go ahead. What's your way of finding the true value of ink?
See, and I think a lot of people start looking at price per container or gallon.
Mm-hmm.
And gallons obviously fluctuate from manufacturer to manufacturer. I could say one thing that in the way we package at Avient is we press. So we pressing ink out of a container into a bucket. And what it does is deaerates the ink. So you have a more solid, no air in it. If someone pumps into a bucket, it actually gives you a false feeling that you have more ink in a bucket. And that's all there is. And it's about weight. So that's important. Just remember, it's about weight. So before you even start testing an ink, what you want to do is you're going to say, okay, I got these two inks. One's X amount, one's this amount. See the weights in the bucket, you know, in each bucket, write that down. And then I want you to go on press. And the worst thing you can do is set up a press with your existing ink, drag it out and throw the other ink in and see what happens. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not optimizing for the second ink. And I don't, you know, I tell people, even if you're going against me and my brand, for your own good, optimize that second one and see how it looks and feels. Because it's a big deal about, you know, what's in the bucket, what's on this, you know, what's in this, how it reacts in the screen, how it cures, how it feels at the end is really important. So now you're saying, okay, well, if you can make one feel better than the other, that's a value. If they're about the same, then you move on. You say, okay, well, the next thing I like to do is kind of determine the yield. So to get the price per print, you want to find out how much yield you're getting. And we studied this a long time. And whenever you print something, it's not about volume of space or anything. It's actual weight. We printed with an ink that's 13 pounds a gallon against an ink that was 11 pounds a gallon. But when we print that one print, it's what? 5 grams. It doesn't matter which one it is. It's still the same. Now, there's some minor variances. If one's not clearing the screen and you're having to double stroke it, it weighs more. And that's where, you know, a flow rate can bother you. It can ruin your value because now you're having to put down more ink. And in fact, you're pulling more ink out of that bucket as you're going. So that bothers the yield. Okay. So.
And your production time, because now your production time's more because you're double hitting.
Yeah. Well, that's that's part of the last thing about your value. If you're talking about just about ink, though, we're talking about volume. We're talking about how much is being put down. So if you can create a piece of art. There's a 4x4 square or something like that, and that's like 16 square inches of coverage, and you print it. And what you do is you weigh a piece of fabric, you print it, take it off this machine and put it right back on your scale, and you can see how much ink is going down. And you'll find out those weights are going to be pretty much the same between two different inks. But then when you go back to the weight per gallon, okay, so that 13 pounds, and you're doing 5 grams at a time, you're getting 200, 300 more prints out of that 1 gallon. And it's mind boggling because
Wow.
when I first figured that out, I'm going, but they look the same. They're a gallon. But that's what we call yield. Okay. So secondly, is production, what you were talking about. How fast can I run it? The faster you can run it, if you take advantage of it, the faster you can run it, better off you are because production costs are so high. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when you break it down, the shirt is expensive compared to the ink. The ink is going to be, once you find out your yield and even the comparison. So yield, you're saying, hey, I'm spending 2.5 to 8 cents a shirt on ink.
Right.
And then the difference between the cheap ink you're using and the expensive ink you're using is even smaller. But if you're getting 200 more pieces an hour off of the expensive ink, you're actually saving money. That price per print is driven down because the number one biggest cost in the shop is overhead, is people, your bills, everything else that's surrounding you. And the faster you can run that job and the faster you get down and back up again, the better you are. And that's where a lot of the money is kind of wasted in a shop. But like I said, I can tell you all this, and I can tell you this ink is better, and I can tell you this ink is faster. I'm going to tell you one thing. If you don't take advantage of it, then it doesn't matter. So I have been in many places where they want to talk about how this particular white is, $4 higher a gallon than this other one. Yet I'm watching a guy set up his job without any kind of pre-registration, or they're running, their current ink is running with a squeegee speed of about 6 seconds because they have to.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's where the true costs are hidden. And if you get by that hidden cost, you're much better off.
Right. That's incredible. I think the yield alone is worth its weight. Now, I have worked.
Pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Worth its weight in gold. Right. I've worked for a lot of distributors. I've sold a lot of. We were talking before the show. I started selling Wilflex ink in 1987 and distributor trainings back then. And I remember had to be in 2000s. I was with one of your reps in a very large shop, and we were going against a competitive ink. And he said, Alan, it's not about price per gallon. That's what he said. We go on how many shirts an hour can you print with it? And I've taken that and go, it's not even about how fast you can print. I tell clients it's all about how many invoices can you make that day?
Yeah.
Or shipping labels that day. It's about getting it out. And that's why, now they're under one umbrella. But most of my career, Wilflex and Rutland were always 1 and 2 going back and forth. Why were they price per gallon, maybe one of the more costly inks, price per gallon, but they were also the number one because they ran faster, they ran quicker with less times. Anytime you have to stop to wipe the bottom of a screen, that sucking sound you hear is money.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick is that. And our friend Richard Greaves tells the story when he was, and Richard, I know you're listening. There was a shop in Florida. I want to think it was Harlequin. He was consulting after he was actually working there for about a year. And one of the old Rutland girls, I think it was Genevieve, sent him a white to test. And he called her and goes, yeah, it's just not running right. And she goes, oh, you're running it too fast. Slow down your press. And in total Richard Greaves fashion going, now, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
Slow down your floods and squeegee stroke. Why would I want to do that on an automatic? Fix your ink.
Right,
and that's classic. And that's what it's about, especially now when people are opening shops and not even having a manual, going right to an automatic.
Well, that was one of the biggest shifts is when more people were getting automatics and manuals. Mm-hmm. You had to fix the ink. We had to make it to where, we don't want it to be the limiting factor, in the cure, in the speed, and in the equipment. So, I mean, part of my value proposition a lot of times is when you're running this particular ink, you have to add a screen to make it work as good as the other one. Right. There, there goes all your cost out the window. If you're averaging 400 pieces an order, there it's gone. That's another penny, whatever. So that's one thing we always try to point out,
Right. Well, good. We have here Hurley switched to YouTube because Facebook sound was cutting in and out. Okay, I'm sorry about that, Chris. Thank you very much for knowing that. So Gosta from Sweden says, why do you mix gram and pound? It's confusing.
Grams. Okay. So so on average, you take an average gram, a pound is like what, 454 grams. So, it's like you can break it down like that, but it really does come down to grams. You can break down the pound into grams. And so 13 pounds into grams will give you X amount of grams. And that then you divide it by the amount of that's on your print. So if it's 5 grams, you can see how many shirts you can get out of that gallon, theoretically. I mean, close enough. It's closer than not doing it, that's for sure.
Right.
And then with that thing I suggested with the squares, you don't necessarily have to do that. If for instance, you have to give a bid on a job and it's tight, and you have the art and you have the screens, you can just print that one screen and actually get the exact weight of that particular print. And then divide that by your gallons. You know how many gallons you have to buy. So we have people that are running jobs for 3 or 4 weeks. And so they get it down to the gallon of how much they want to, they need to order to get through that job. And it helps them sharpen the pencil a little bit to get those bids. Yeah. Wonderful.
All right. And Richard, that story I told is true. He said, slow down, fail. It's 1987 at the big Harlequin Nature Graphics. Man, what a great printer they were in Fort Myers, Florida. So, I love that. Dan says on whites, he learned from Joe Clark that his whites here sold the design to flow best at faster speeds. And not just his, that the late Joe Clark, at the end of his life, was making his own ink. A lot of them are designed for faster shear. Great for production, but most people don't realize this and cover more will run slower and angle out the squeegee or put in a softer squeegee. So with Joe's description of mine, all the white cotton inks are really designed in mind. Are all the white cotton inks really designs to flow better at faster speeds, like a 7/8 setting on M&R press to get more coverage? Ray, would that be true on the cotton whites?
Yes, it's designed for that if you use it right. So especially on an automatic, what's great about an automatic is that you can control your flood, and the flood is really what gets the stuff moving. So you get a good flood and you have a good stencil on your screen. You're actually in the point where the pseudoplastic ink will start settling into the mesh. And if you're on plastisol, if you're putting the the flood bar in slightly contact with the screen itself, it'll actually push some of that ink through to the point where you're printing nothing. You're just shearing it off. You're just dropping on the shirt. So going fast does help. It actually makes that surface smoother and quicker. It's quicker, smoother and nicer and more coverage. You're actually putting more ink down, and you can mess with it. The angle. You can actually tip it out a little bit if you want, just a little bit more opacity. Tip it out, take pressure off. So, on average, if I'm running a plastisol white first time onto a garment, I'm usually around 45 pounds of pressure. It's not much you can get around from that. But anything on top of it's going to be 25 to 30 pounds of pressure. I've seen many times I walk in a place and they're bending their squeegees, making this ink through. When in fact, you can just say, hey, pick up that screen. How much pressure is it taking you to stick that through with your finger? Hardly any pressure at all. The ink will flow through mesh. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
You think that you have to push it so hard. Now you're trying to push it hard through the mesh and then stop short of the shirt so you can just barely cover it. That's just not going to go. That's the best thing to do is get the flow rate going, run that flood bar just fast enough to keep up with the index. No faster. just and then use the flood, the pressure on the flood to help you just release the ink from the screen on top of the shirt.
Yep. Great. Yeah. I always say in seminars on printing better whites, plastisol is to be sheared, not pushed.
Yeah.
And I repeat it over and over
Right.
on there. Richard says on the yield, he always printed on paper and then weighed that with a gram scale.
Right. Yeah.
So, yep. Mark Saldana says use the cost tool in the IMS, mesh colors, percentage covered, and all numbers of prints. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's in the IMS software.
That's a great tool. Yeah.
If you put your cost in on the front end, and you're able to see how much a gallon costs, and then you turn around and get your, how much you're going to use, it actually breaks down how many gallons you need for that job, because you can put as many pieces as you want on there, and how much that's going to cost you overall to buy and sell or whatever.
Richard says there's plenty of inks that don't have a thixotropic drop. When you stroke them, look for ink climbing the blade. Yeah, that is the first sign of just a real cheap ink. When it's climbing the squeegee, not good.
Well, that's when you're having to do flood less and print harder and print slower.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in some cases, there's some instances where that's not a bad thing for like athletic printing. It's almost like putting a paste down.
Right.
And you're getting some good opacity out of it, but don't expect to fly through that thing. It's just a different technique, it's a different type of ink. If you get something that's really light and it's supposed to run fast and it climbs, then that's not how it should be designed, in my opinion. I've been kind of spoiled, but I've used every ink in my lifetime. And I tend to go toward ones that can stir down, so even in the cold, not warming it up, just stirring it down, get it flowing again, get that thixotropic thing working for you.
Right. If I'm listening, I'm not keeping up with the stuff. So Gusta says he meant to say we use metric, kilo, and grams, and you usually don't. So why? He goes, sorry for my spelling.
Okay.
You know what? Gustav will say it again. Your English is way better than our Swedish, so no need to ever apologize. So, but yeah, I thought that's what you meant. We go from pounds to grams on weight. Gallons we go from pounds there, which is an English imperial one, and grams are a metric. I'm not sure why we do that.
I don't know. We're about the only ones.
Yeah, we are about the only ones.
But if you look, even though we have gallon containers, we do sell by weight. So you can break it down to grams to find out how much you're paying per gram. If you need to.
All of the mixing systems are designed in grams also.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, great question. Richard says a hockey puck and a 1-inch roll of tape. Make the hockey puck come out of the tape roll with a squeegee. That's a Joe Clark one. That's awesome. Yeah. Or is that a Richard one, I think? I don't know if he learned that from Joe, but I've seen both of them use it. Ray Greenwood, finally, someone understands that the flood bar is actually the primary shear tool on press in order. First, the flood. Second, the squeegee comparison of movement, then snap-off rate. The flood bar to screen gap can be critical as well. It's a multiplier of speed.
That is correct.
And the screen tension or lack thereof can govern how much you're able to use the flood bar in this manage. And I agree so much on that. You have very poor tension. I don't care what we're saying. You're going to have very big problems.
Well, you're going to have an uneven flood. It's going to start looking good. And then you get in the middle of the screen, all of a sudden you've got a thick flood with no pressure. And then it goes into nothing sometimes. You might lose your flood. And with thixotropic ink, and I tell you, this is the same with water base, it's very important to have a good flood all the way up. You flood it all the way up, and then that way you don't have an uneven deposit when you go to shear it off with your squeegee.
Right. Mr. John McGee, you know him?
Yes, I do. He's one of my guys.
He is one of the guys.
And he didn't say anything about my beard because he can't. He's got the best beard. And look at that beard.
Yeah, look at that there. So I was going to put John under Ray. I was going to put best beard in the industry, but I was afraid I would have got blowback from you. So, yeah. But he says the IMS 3.0 software is now available as a web version. So now that you can use IMS on your smartphone or Mac, that's huge.
Yeah,
that is huge.
Use it like an app, and it's so easy to toggle between your ink lines and everything else, and all these things we're talking about. There's something on YouTube about it. So you guys,
right?
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel, so we have 2 or 3 things on IMS, and we're all covering that stuff. The recycle feature, the use it on your iPhone, your Mac. We have all of that. We have cost of print, like how to test your inks. Everything is on there. So guys, check it out.
We love YouTube and information on there. So great. Right. And I'm so excited on the whole Mac thing, because that was always, a little sticking point. It's not available on Mac, but now it is. So great.
Well, I'm more excited that it works on your iPhone, because
exactly
you don't even have your phone out. You don't have to have a internet connection. You have your
right. Yep. Dave Egger says from Illinois, good afternoon, guys. Sorry I'm late. Sounds like a great discussion. So far it is. Ray says in the industrial world, we have to pre-shear some inks and then only print within the recovery time window. Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, that industrial world is a whole nother planet, man. But it's fun.
I mean, Plastisol ink does have a window too, but it's a long time. So you can actually shear something in the morning and be printing it all day, or even wait till the afternoon to print, and it's pretty much sheared. And then, of course, the shearing action of the squeegee does it all.
Richard corrects me, says, no, it's a trademark Grief's comment, the hockey puck through there. So
you heard it here first.
Yeah, well, I have actually stolen a couple of Richard's things he showed me over the years. And one is how to, if you can't understand mesh roll and tension. And, if you've seen it before, oops, why is this still up? So usually I do a thing where on your hand, whoops, where's my camera at? There you can see your skin moving. Mm-hmm. That's, loose tension, make a fist. There it is. So I learned that from Richard. We were in Fort Worth earlier this year, and there's a mixer, something going on. We're both there, and I'm talking to some people. Richard's talking to people. Someone came up to him, and he's talking to him about tension. He does the little hand thing, and the guy goes, "Oh, you learned that from Alan Howe." Richard brings them over, and he goes, Alan, he introduces me to him, and he's doing that. And I had never met him. He saw me do it on there. And he goes, yeah. He said he saw this thing that he wants to know if I learned it from you. I just look at the guy, I go, is he stealing my gig? He goes, he is. So, yeah, it was awesome. But no, I learned that from Richard, and Richard actually learned it from Don Newman. Right. So we all just share things all the time. But says, Ray, are you describing thixotropic hydroplaning?
Hydroplane. I have a different definition for hydroplaning.
See, now Ray's just showing off.
Yeah, I think he knows all the other inks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, it could be another term that I'm not using. But hydroplane to me means you're just skipping over it. I don't really do it. But thixotropic is just movement makes it flow. So that's all. Like ketchup bottle. You turn ketchup bottle upside down, brand new, it's not going to flow. As soon as you shake it, it starts flowing. So that's a thixotropic action.
Oh, that's a great little thing too. Mesh tension pulls the stencil out of deposit. Absolutely. Dr. Peter Walsh, good morning from Kansas City, home of the really great Until Halftime Chiefs. Good morning, Peter. So, Peter, it was great for you to fill in for me last week on the show. Thank you so much.
That was a good show.
It was a great show. Yeah. Got to listen to most of it considering I was stuck in Louisville Airport all day. So my 7:00 flight landed at 4:00. Ray and I were talking that day, and he just goes, I was kind of complaining, going, what is this? There's no Sky Club. I lost my first class seat. And just being a travel snob, because we all travel so much. Ray goes, first world problems. They are that. So
Do you watch the news? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But I go, you are right. And he goes, yeah, but we're first world people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but thank you again, Peter. That was great. Mario, Rio versus MX in combination with Plastic Charge. What is your go-to red Pantone that does not fade after wash? Oh, I have no idea. Go ahead. That's all you, Ray.
Oh, well, I mean, I'll tell you, the Rio has a little bit better pigment package. I feel it's a little more opaque. I would, if I was to bet on either one, I'd bet on the Rio. It is a low cure and everything, but got to make sure you got that mix very well. And obviously, you're mixing it, get it fully mixed before you add the discharge agent.
I would think too on if they're having a fading problem, I would make sure, especially with discharge, you got to make sure they're up to temperature. If they're not, you're not going to get a full discharge out of them.
And more time. If you're used to using Plastisol,
yep,
you want more time with the Plastic Charge because it is a discharge.
Yep.
So you want to go, if you're going 1 minute through the oven, you go to minute 30 at least. If you have room, even more, because it's a slow evaporation of the water that's in the discharge agent. And even though it looks great coming out of the oven, it's, oh, this is really red. If it's washing out, chances are, and this goes for discharge too. If it comes out looking great and you say, oh, this is popping, but then it washes, it looks kind of like grayed out, or you start seeing some natural color coming through, that means you didn't go long enough. You need more time in the oven with any kind of discharging agent.
Okay, cool. Hopefully that helps. Evan Williams, who's out of Illinois, he says, I know this is a loaded question, but is it better to slightly dig the flood bar into the mesh or to leave a slight gap for flooding? Sorry if you went over this already. Evan, are you talking, I know your shops, are you talking water-based, or are you talking Plastisol? It's going to be the first one on that. But
first of all, I love his name.
Yep. Evan Williams. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can answer it either way. I mean, water-based, you want to leave a gap. I mean, because on water-based is a totally different thing. You want it to coat the flood area. It's important to cover the entire image area before you print. But you're still using, say, water-based is a lot looser, a lot easier to get through the mesh. You don't need a lot of squeegee pressure again. I mean, maybe that first one, 45 pounds maybe, but after that, you're talking 25 pounds or 30 pounds of pressure on top of any kind of underbase. For Plastisol, I like to just barely rest the squeegee bar on them and have that gap out. Same with water-based. Have your squeegee bar to the back of the machine where you got more gap between the squeegee and the flood bar. And you kind of like drive it, you kind of roll the ink down. If you're digging into the mesh, you start, messing with your emulsion. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with digging into the mesh like that. The thing about it is movement. It's more about movement than it is about pressure. Okay, it's about movement, getting it flowing.
I was telling squeegee pressure, especially with M&Rs, you bring that squeegee down just till it's resting. Run your test print. If it all clears, great. If it doesn't, just a little bit more pressure and just start adjusting from there. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
My first go-to after I get the settings that I think I like, my first go-to is a squeegee angle almost every time. Yeah.
Yeah. I never want too much. I see people going too much. A 0 to 15% is it. Yeah. So you don't need a lot. And if you're running that ink and it's flowing good, you can go less squeegee angle. Right. So good. John McGee says, we've been getting several tech calls asking about ink buildup on the backs of subsequent screens on press. Usually too much heat. Do you guys want to talk about mitigating ink buildup? No, we don't. I'm kidding, John. Go ahead, Ray. This is my show. You will not produce it. No, I'm kidding.
This is my one blanket statement. First of all,
go ahead.
If ink is being built up on the back of your screen, somehow there's too much ink going down because you're splitting it. Okay, so the less ink that goes down, the harder it is. It takes more energy to split that ink off of the shirt back onto the screen. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of strategies. Obviously, if you're getting a bad buildup and it's moving into the thing, first of all, make sure you're using the right ink, because if you're using athletic ink, it's going to happen.
And
But
you're
if you're
trying to
using
do
a
a fashion
ink that's
print?
not,
Absolutely.
if you're using an ink that's supposed to, print wet on wet, then you can start looking at the mesh counts. And so you might up your mesh counts because this ink is made to flow through higher meshes, especially if you're going on top of a underbase. If it's on a fabric, you got to check out, make sure you're not high pile fabric, because that can actually mix with ink sometimes and start sticking to the back of your screens. But one of the strategies I always do is try to have less pressure on subsequent screens, because, and this got me thinking. It was years ago I was at a place and they were getting built up on the fourth screen from an ink that was in the first screen, not on the second and third. And I'm thinking something's not right here. And then we realized that they had a hard squeegee in that fourth screen and using a lot of pressure. And so we said, okay, let's go less pressure, just enough to make it print. And then after that, we look at angles, and then we can look at softer squeegee. So at the last screen, maybe use a softer squeegee. So it helps keep from scraping that ink back off of the shirt. But number one, I want is to put just enough ink on there. So we're talking about colors should be in 230s, things like that. So, if you have to go more. So, and then of course, make sure your off contacts is allowing you to just kind of, as you print, you can see your screen picking up right behind it. If you're leaving too much down, it's going to be in contact with all that ink that's on the shirt. And it's like a vacuum table, or when you put two pieces of glass together, if it's not peeling away, it's going to go like that. And then when it does, it's going to pull everything up.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, good. Thank you, Ray. Right there. I love these questions. How long does discharge agent last? I found an old quart container while doing some winter cleaning. Probably been back there for 2 years or more. Part of me, I don't know. Part of me, I want to say, if you found an apple 2 years ago, would you eat it? So, okay. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long it lasts like that. I'm sure there's a shelf life on it.
There's ways to make it last longer, but whenever I tell somebody, if they're running a job today, you mix your color and you wait till you're ready to run, and mix only enough to get you through to lunch, and then have dirt, right at lunch, you mix another container and start adding it in from there. Don't ever pre-activate anything.
Yeah, I don't know, Michael. On something, if I found something 2 years, 3 years ago, I'm like, I don't know, I'd be scared. So,
well, someone posted this week. They posted the Genesis bucket they found.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
this is great insight.
Full of phthalates and everything else, but hey, it probably work if you could stir it.
Yeah, exactly. Ray says that split you're speaking of is also time based. The slow snap of the low tension screen, excessively slow stroke, creates more ink snap back into the threads. A classic demonstration is the honey spoon. Very good. Dip a spoon in honey and pull it slowly out as strings. Move it quickly, it snaps off. Oh, that's good. Yeah. When you do that with low mesh and everything, that's how you get unsmooth prints. That's where you get frosting, what I call frosting peaks, things like that. You can get
orange peel.
Orange peel, yeah. I do the frosting peaks ones, and not to mention you can get mesh roll where you're going to have that halo and effect and everything.
Oh yeah, So that's perfect. I mean, you see that quite often. They say, "Hey, for some reason my screen, your white isn't lining up," and I'm going, and it's because they have a nice tight screen on the white, and it's perfect, and then the colors are rolling over it and going past it. And say, "Hey, we're lined up on the bottom, but the top is off like 1/8 of an inch." I said, "Well."
Frank says yes. Meringue peaks. I actually the Printing Better White seminar I do, I have a picture of a white cake with frosting and it's all peaked up like it's supposed to be. I go, anybody ever get that in their whites? Oh yeah, hands go up. Yeah, it's all tension.
Well, and Milos makes a living doing that.
Well, yeah, Milos is one of a kind though. So yeah,
when you do it on purpose, it's good.
It's good. Yeah, yeah. That's where my ink's not covering. Well, it's a special effect. Tell it is that.
Can you do it again?
Vintage.
No,
it's vintage. Yeah. Dye migration. It's a special effect. Yeah. And I'm convinced, Ray, that when it comes to ink, like you said, there's ways to get yield, to get better yield and better inks when you're going to test, but there's a lot of things you got to do. If you have crappy screens, I am convinced that 85% of all screen printing problems can go back to tension, always, in some frame or fashion.
Well, I tell you, John and Angel and all my guys could tell you, when we first walk into a place and they're having trouble with something, we look at everything else first. We want to make sure that they don't have the stencil on the inside of their screen, and they're not running with 40 durometer blades, and
exactly.
We check before, because it's a chain of events, and the weakest chain is going to kill you. And we have confidence in our ink that we've printed it like it should. It should work somewhere else. I'm not saying that sometimes you get a bad lot or something went wrong in shipping, but 99% of the time has something to do with the application or the equipment or the dryer. Right. Something is going awry there, and that's what our job is to be screen printers. We're not really tech, we're ink tech guys, but being screen printers is the number one job. And that's what we go in there and we look at someone's whole shop a lot of times trying to figure out a problem.
Well, Ray, we've run through almost 50 minutes, like 40 minutes on there. We have a couple other topics.
Okay.
Do we want to do low cure silicone, or let's do this one?
Oh yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah, this is a great one. And I don't think people think about this, of setting up their own special effects lab, of how to do that.
Yeah.
So
So and actually, again, on YouTube, I have this, how to set up your lab. So this is one of my favorite things to do. We used to call it Infinite Effects. We used to call it, we had 2 or 3 different names over the years, but it's the same idea. So you get it, say you get a piece of art, like it's your logo. Okay. And in that logo, you'll be burning 2 or 3 screens with just the one color design of your logo. And then maybe do a few with some patterns in it, something like that. Say you're on a 6-color manual, and you'll have like a 110 full mesh. Then you have a 86 high density with that same solid. Then you have like a 230 with the pattern in it for like suedes and puffs. Then you have a metallic screen and maybe a different design. So what you do is you line this up like it's going to be a multicolor. They all lined up together. And a lot of times I'll just like to start out with certain base. I'll have a clear, like a high density, a metallic, a regular ink, like in a regular 110 screen. And then, you can pick and choose anything else that might interest you, a cork or a brittle or whatever.
Yep.
And you fill those screens up, and you actually print them one at a time, cure them. You got 6 samples right there, right? Next you do, okay, I'm going to print number 1 first and then number 2. Cure it. Number 1, number 3, number 1, number 4, number 1, number 5. And you just keep doing that. After a while, you've got, if you're doing all that and then you're adding 1 more screen each time, you're at 150 something effects, and you know how you did it.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
Hang those on your wall with your logo. Right. 1 color. Eventually you can change colors. You can change rotations. You can mix match. So a lot of people like to put sculpture in with cork to create a different high density look. You can tint the clear. You can tint the shimmers or the glitters. And basically what you're creating is a book that you can sell your customer, and you know how it works, and nobody else does. Right. So a guy down the street, someone, hey, can you do this? And the guy shows, they may even call me and say, hey, how did Joe Blow make that special effect? And I go, I don't know. He did it on his own, I wasn't there, and I don't want to tell him, but when we did that at D Lab, and I know, and Mark just mentioned that's his day at the lab. It is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that his whole life. When he was with us in Kennesaw, same thing. A lot of great effects prints, but having that book and then and knowing what it takes to do that. So what I would do is I would have that list, but I wouldn't tell my salesman how we did it. But I would tell my salesman to say, okay, you can do 3 colors with this effect, or you can do 2 colors, or maybe this effect is only by itself.
Right.
Whatever it is, they could sell it that way. And so the customer make a decision. So I want that effect, but I want 2 more colors. Can't be done. Or yeah, we can do that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. We had to put that up. Ray says, quit popping people's bubbles. Everyone knows that when it doesn't print, it's the ink's fault.
Every time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ink don't think.
Yeah,
I actually, a guy, he said he would let me have the patent when we discover how to make autocorrect spelling ink. So
yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
I said, I don't want to be blamed for one more thing, man. Come on.
Right. So Chris, who's been doing a lot with HD, he sent me pictures. I know he sent you. He said he was going to say, right, what I was going to say, what if it's on purpose? We're talking about problems.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm working on a silicone HD this weekend. That would be interesting. That I'm purposely going to try to have the fabric dye bleed into part of the graphic. Can it dye into silicone? That's going to be tough.
That silicone for most part doesn't want to be. I mean, if you want it to be like really obvious, you might be disappointed because it could vary. We do in our silicone ink, we do have the a blocker, so you can get some differences. You do a part of it blocked and part of it not. Then you can see that little bit of a difference. But there's been times when when Dan Solomon worked with us, we were trying to create that look, and we had to really play with it a long time because silicone is just solid, man. You can go low cure and eventually it'll cure. You can iron it, you can do everything else, but it doesn't want to play. I guess you would, I think what we try to do is try to get some sublimated material and cook it, and then you'll see something maybe. But then what kills me too about silicone, which I love as a printer, is that sometimes you'll get that bleed and then after a while it's gone.
I was just going to say, Ray, doesn't silicone sometimes the dye will come up and then almost gasses through it?
Yeah, it's just and it's surprising too. It's like first time Dan showed me that we had a white garment on a what you got sublimated pattern, and I said,
right.
Shouldn't this cover it? And he goes, well, just look at it today. That's what I'll
yeah.
Gone.
That was kind of cool. When I think it was Rob Coleman showed me that. When he was with you guys, he goes, look, we can't say it's gassing out for sure right now, but this is what we think that's happening. And I'm like, oh, wow. Because I was doing a seminar on bleeding and dye migration. I said, anything new? And he started showing me this. I'm like, and you can see my eyes. He goes, you can't say anything yet. I might have to, Ray. I might have to, Rob, though. So, yeah, that was incredible. Jesse says, for the photo nerds out there, you're describing a screen printer's version of the zone system, but with color Google Ansel Adams. Right. Such an idiot. He's like, Ray gets on the phone with me, at night, and we just start talking about like that. So hilarious. Either that or a clear HD base with a pigment so I can get a translucent effect on part of the graphic. That would look cool.
It does look good. We actually did a print for a long time when I was at D-Lab, and it was a cow wearing sunglasses, but they were rose-colored glasses. So we were messing around with inks. I said, screw that. We just went ahead and print the cow with the glass frames, and then we overprinted with a rose-colored clear, and it was perfect. It gave it that shine, but also it affected the colors underneath it just enough, and it was fantastic.
Right. So while we're in there, we're talking about that. Let's talk low cure and silicone. It's a great segue for the next 7 minutes. We're here. So
low cure, silicone on its own is low cure. You can, if you use catalyst, you got to use catalyst. Just time will help that and everything. So on really sensitive fabrics, you can get a really smooth look with silicone and cure very low. So that helps anyway with any kind of bleed. But on the low cure side, there are plastisols now that are low cure. And that specifically was designed to kind of beat dye migration to the punch before it could infiltrate the ink film. The film's already cured. That was the race. So over the last 10 years, it's been amazing. So, back in the day, we we were fighting low, like bleed with peroxides and
Oh yeah.
and everything else. But when it came to bring that cure down and realizing that there's a point in which the dye migration releases, and then a next point where it just really attacks. If we can get in there somewhere and stop it. So when we have low cure as low as 270, 260, and then of course the silicone, you can really drop it down if you have time to let it sit after cure.
Right.
It'll end up curing. Some water based too. You can add any additives to get the cure earlier is always great, and or a lower temperature. And people say, "Oh, I had to run it through fast." Well, not necessarily. If you have control of your oven, which is, by the way, my opinion, the most important piece of equipment in your shop, to be able to control that temperature and keep it level, and then be able to run it slower, you're much better off on all inks.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think low
cure. A lot of people are going low cure whites out there, but Avient, we created the low cure mixing systems, low cure specialties, everything.
I always one of the things on low cure is I'm a huge low cure proponent in plastisols. Was from the moment it came out. I do not enjoy people trying to use low cures thinking that's the end of it, and not using, whether it be a blocking gray or a blocking white, and sometimes depending on the fabric, to have a blocking gray and then a white on top of it. And I think the technology's been great. Some of those grays were tough to work with early on. They've all become very printable and very nice. So and then I still get the question, can I use a standard color on top of a low cure? No.
You can't, but you have to cure it higher.
Now why use a low cure? You're just. So and then also to remind people, you're using a low cure, remember it's low cure, you're gonna have to adjust your flash times also. So and
just like anything, like I said earlier, if you don't take advantage of it, you're not going to get the advantage. So get your ovens right, get them lower, get them and consistent. I highly recommend anybody get a thermal probe and kind of
absolutely
watch it, get the timing right, so I mean, it's nothing worse than a guy, we had a customer who said, I want to go all low cure, but he had terrible ovens. I mean, so the oven would fluctuate, from, 220 to, 330. And I'm you got to fix these first so we can get where you want to be. We want to be in the 270 or 280 range. We got to be able to stay there. And so, I mean, eventually he got new ovens, but before that, he was ready to jump into both feet. And I'm going, listen, I mean, you're having trouble already. The low cure is just not going to fix all your problems. You want, he was thinking low cure meant I can use bad ovens. It's not necessarily true.
Exactly. I love thermal probes. On all my seminars with inks, I want to thank, I always give Wilflex credit because the slides I have for thermal probes came from Wilflex, and someone that's retired from there said, you did not get these from me. But I think there were pictures you took, Ray. So
with Steve Hedges' hands, I'm sure.
Might be, I don't know. But So but if and then you got to know the difference. One, I'm always about trust the tools. I don't care what your dryer says. Trust the tools. Trust your thermal probe. Do you have a temperature gun? They're great, but you got to know what they do and what they don't do. They're a surface test.
Well, people ask me about the thermal, the gun. I use the gun all the time on my flash on the surface. And then also it can be a reference, like I said, once you get your donut probe established and that heat, I recommend getting the gun. And as it is in a certain space, maybe a foot inside your oven, and you hit that surface, you got an idea where it should be if it's being cured correctly. It's not, it'll be much lower. It'll be like 280 or even lower. But at least you have a reference. So if someday you just walking through and you say, these don't look like it's working right, and you hit that as a reference point, you go ahead and shoot it inside the oven, and it's all of a sudden now it's 220. Then you have to run the thermal probe again. So
Yeah.
it's purely for reference. On flashes, they're fantastic because that's what
Yep.
it's just the surface.
I love the thermochrome's one for mapping a dryer because you just don't know what's happening in that chamber. And
Mhm.
once you know, then you can adjust
Right.
and control the variables. So yeah, perfect. Chris says he was going to try stacking it, most likely go over the top again and stack for 7 hours. That's the silicone I think he's doing.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. I don't know. We have no comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I use a black Defender block a lot of times, even on 50/50 hoodies, especially black and burgundy. Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't hurt, does it? No.
Yeah. You know what? The cost of doing that is better than garments coming back. You have to redo them.
Mm-hmm.
Thermoprobe, while it's kind of the industry common standard, there's much better tools if you need them. Okay, I don't know what that is. It's a huge thing.
I just want to make a quick point here, and you talked about the black or the grays. You know, what's great about the black and grays is that it's a totally different technology than the dye inhibitors that are in white ink.
Yep.
These are filters. They have carbon.
Yep.
So there's filtering and grabbing the dye on the way up. So when it actually hits the white ink, there's hardly anything left. And if you use like just a general purpose white on top, it should be enough. So that's why I say you have two different technologies working against that dye, which I always love. And if you can work that into your design, many times designs have gray. You use a gray under there, or you can do a mix with the carbon. It works every time.
I think too, people need to realize too that if they're not checking their cures on their whites or their colors, that if you're under cured at all, some of the plasticizers are not fused. Those dyes will follow those plasticizers, and that's where you get the difference from bleed, which is almost immediate, to migration. It's 3 days later, and now all that's there. It's migrated through following that line of plasticizer. So, absolutely. What did Chris say? Just like the stack of HA I sent you, Alan, I'm going to see if I can push the limits on stacking silicone HD and see if it fails.
I don't think it'll run the surface if that's what you worry about, but I mean, if it's out of the oven for a minute.
Yeah, this is how
you're talking about stacking
silicone. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get pretty thick with thicker screens, but yeah, I'd be interested to see that. I want to see that.
This is how things happen. People trying stuff. You never say it can't be done because then someone will. It's like, okay, let us know how it goes. I can't wait to see the pictures.
See, in my mind, I was thinking, stacking shirts. I mean, stacking inks. Yeah.
Yeah. Simon says, good morning, fellas. It's
morning.
Actually afternoon here in the Midwest, but we're just about out of time too. We hit all of them. This was great questions, everybody. Thank you for bringing them up on there. So I can't believe that hour has flown through already. What's Peter say? Real quick, silicone stacks, high density like nothing. We ran silicone through 800 micron, crazy height and great feel. This would be cool. Right there. 1:36 coat ratio in the drying rack now. Awesome.
Love it.
It's going to be huge. So, yeah. And I believe Chris is doing all that manually. So, yeah. And you know what? On silicone, next month, we do have Mr. Dan Solomon. He's scheduled. He's going to be back in the States. He lives in the UK now. And he's going to be back in the States, and we're going to have him on the show talking everything silicone. And I know he does a lot now with industrial silicone. So it'll be fun.
Right.
So it'll be awesome. Ray, if people want to get in touch with you, would this be the best way?
Yes, it is.
So
and I should have told you this earlier too, because you could have put it on there. If you have any questions about any Avient ink, the best way to get quick response is send an email to askspecialtyinks@avient.com. That's
I wish I would. Yeah.
Askspecialtyinks@avient.com. It goes to a bunch of us, and whoever is most qualified to answer will answer, or at least we'll get something moving for you. And that's for anything from troubleshooting and inquiries, color matches, the whole bit, everything. It's best to go through that, even better than calling us, because more people are able to respond to that.
And Ray, I know you guys, we were talking that, you started it was with Wilflex, and now with Avient, it is Wilflex and Union and Rutland and, oh
QCM.
man, who else? QCM and all that. And I remember you and I talking that you're loving this, having all of them, because you used to compete against them and everybody had something, the other one didn't.
Yeah.
And I know you and I were talking about when Rutland bought Union, you thought, oh man, why didn't we? Because it's such a great ink.
Oh,
and now
man,
you got them all to play with. Yeah.
I didn't even know they were for sale, man. I was like,
Yeah.
gosh.
That would have been awesome.
We're all together now. We have a great line. I'm so happy with it. And obviously we got to look out for all the new competitors and seeing it's still driving us, and we drive each other. I mean, we still our R&D really working hard this year, especially with the problems we've had getting raw materials and stuff like that. But we're doing some really great stuff, and I can't wait till next year when everything's flowing well and we can start releasing new products again. We'll be ready.
And we didn't even get to talk about water-based. Were you guys under that umbrella now as Magna, and you still had the Zodiac line? And
we still have that. Aquarius Zodiac is all our ecocentric line, but Aquarius is part of that. Right now, Magna and Aquarius are acting as two separate companies. I mean, so obviously we will support whatever we need to do, but right now, both companies are running on their own. So that's how it is for now. I think they're both doing well. So why mess with it?
I love this. Chris says most unproductive hour in the shop in a while, but I learned a lot. Great show, guys. Well, that's what it's about. So
thanks, Chris.
I guess we'll end on that.
Okay.
Thank you again, Ray. Thank you for everybody to GSG, not just for sponsoring the show. They're a big Avient dealer, so any of your Avient products can be getting through them. Of course, Easy Way also. We really we are thrilled for them to be sponsoring us, and they just do a great job. For everybody watching, thank you so much. Someone did ask, I don't think it got up there. Will this show be videoed? It will go up. You can see, remember, you can see all these again on YouTube. You can look them up. Also, you can hear them. They'll go up after this. They'll go up on regular pod channels for audio only on Spotify and all your podcast channels. So make sure you check those out. Let people know. Thank you very much. And you all have a great weekend. Ray, don't go away, and we'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
If you're at the DAC show, come see me. So have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.